Benjamin Castle are Americans. Watching the footy.
Liam Ryan saying, kick it my way, I want to jump over the pack, and here he comes! Ryan!
This is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman!
Got the handball off to Myers. Myers looking for the lead of Stengel. Gee, they're good. Gee, they're sharp. Razzle dazzle Rioli.
Oh, who else? McDonald! Around the body. Jazz up!
He's off from inside the centre square. Boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal from inside the centre. Fuck! I can't believe it.
Football.
Are we doing this again?
No, I was just going to say football and then we were going to start talking about stuff. This is episode 239 of Americans Watching the Footy. We're recapping round 11. I'm Ethan Castle, coming to you from South San Francisco, California, right alongside executive producer Brian Harambe.
I am Benjamin Castle, coming to you from San Diego, California, where I've seen a decent amount of baseball lately. Well, not just in San Diego, in 3 different counties, actually, over the past week plus.
All right, I guess we're going to open with you talking about what you've been up to. Sure.
Yeah, since my semester finished, wanted to take some time and go out to more baseball. I mean, we all went to a Padre game and got rained on because the Mariners brought the Seattle weather with them a bit more than a week ago now. But this past weekend, Memorial Day weekend, I went to 2 games. Saturday night, went up to Anaheim to watch the Marlins beat the Angels. I had never seen the Marlins before, and one of their players, their mom was my advisor in the fall semester, so that was a fun little crossing of paths. His family's got to be in even greater numbers for this 3-game series they got right now because they're in San Diego, and he's from El Cajon, that being Kyle Stowers. And then on Sunday, I went out to San Bernardino to watch the Inland Empire 66ers play the Modesto Nuts, who are in their final season. Sad. Hadn't been to a minor league game in a hot minute, and thankfully I lucked out on the weather. It was mid to high 70s throughout the afternoon game.
Yeah, it should have been 30 degrees warmer, so you could have had the same experience I did, which in communist measurements would have been a little over 42 degrees.
Was it about 100 when you were there for that Mike Trout rehab?
No, it was about 108.
Whoa.
And it was like dry but muggy. It was hard. It was funky.
What time was this game?
It was a 6 p.m. game.
1:08 at 6 p.m. That's my kind of hell.
I've been working on booking things and setting things in stone for my pilgrimage.
The schedule is out for that, rounds 20 through 22. You'll notice that Ethan put things up there as away team at home team. That is because we are American.
I think I need to call this trip like Cultural Learnings of Australia for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of America.
Maybe that could be like the alternate title with the main title just being Ethan's Footy Pilgrimage.
I don't know. I also like the sequel, Subsequent Movie Film.
Mm-hmm. Well, I bet that when I make my first pilgrimage, it'll probably be your subsequent movie film. Again, I'm looking at a couple years from now, maybe. We'll see how that goes. We'll see where the world of education takes me.
But yeah, if you're going to be at any of those games or in any of those cities, I mean, I'll mostly be in Melbourne, but there will be an Adelaide weekend and a couple days of Perth and like just enough time in Sydney to say, ooh, Bridge, ooh, Opera House. Hit me up. And if you're not going to be there, also hit me up. Let me know what I should do, what I should check out. I've got a couple things planned, but always looking for more recommendations. And then we'll see, based on I'm hoping that I'll be able to get in a VFL game or 2, but we'll see what happens with like scheduling there and curtain raisers and possibility. Like there is that Friday night where I won't be in a game and I'll be chilling in Melbourne.
And that's when?
Round 21, 9 plus 10.
21.
Okay, right. And as of now, we don't know what the schedule is for the VFL.
Williamstown is at home that week. I definitely want to go. I will definitely check out the area around Williamstown in one capacity or another.
See if you get that Antarctic wind.
Yeah, and also just, it looks cool.
I mean, the goal would be especially to make it to a Coburg game if possible.
Yeah, or if Mason's playing the VFL, Collingwood.
Meeting Mason is a must.
Yeah. Fortunately, with their training being so close to the G, that shouldn't be too hard.
It's so easy to get to Collingwood and Richmond stuff. I know Carlton tends to be a pain to deal with because Prince's Park is out of the way.
Nothing looks like it's even that far. What else have I written down? Let's see. I'm going to go to one of the restaurants that was mentioned in the Dan Bennett video.
Roll on the weekend.
Sorted.
Are you gonna at least go outside the infamous Entrecote?
Ooh, yeah. See, I really regret a couple years ago. It was closer to around 4 years ago now, when I was in Tampa and I didn't go to the spot where he did it to.
I mean, I don't think based on the prices that you're gonna be actually dining at Entrecote, but
No, that's not my type of fire.
you'll want to see the area where it happened. For those who don't remember, that's the place in Prahran where Stephen May and Jake Melksham had their punch-up. Not as good as the punch-up in Piastan. End of the 1987 World Junior Hockey Championships, a brawl between Canada and the Soviet Union got so bad that the officials turned off the lights to try and stop it. Both teams were disqualified.
Oh, Theo Fleury did like the Anisimov celebration. That's what kind of stuff.
I mean, I think there are other things too.
Just a couple years after what happened, right?
Which one?
The USSR became the USS Aren't. I was going to make this transition about how, like, Jeremy Cameron was awesome. I didn't really execute that like I had planned. But yeah, Jeremy Cameron.
I mean, the storyline entering was Bailey Smith.
Geelong 127, defeating the Western Bulldogs 16-17, 113.
Happy 300th, Mitch Duncan. Less happy acknowledgement of Bailey's from the Bulldogs. That was a solid banner. Our beloved Bulldogs, loyal without fail. We should acknowledge Bailey. So thank you, Truckendale.
That was good. Like, everything about this couldn't have gone off much better. It was all, like, good-natured. I thought at some point we were just going to have this thing like a full-on brawl.
Just a bit of banter.
But I think the game being close helped prevent that. It was a combination of factors. It was a close game, and I'm going to think that both teams spent the week saying, like, all right, let's not start anything stupid. We got to go out there and win. And the team with Jeremy Cameron was the one that did the winning because he kicked 6.
6.
A week ago, I had said it would be great if he could, do this in a tight game instead of, like the 2 big bags he's had this year were like running away with blowouts.
I mean, he had 5 of his 7 goals last week in the 4th, I believe.
It would be great if this could translate to some goals in key situations. And he said, okay, bet.
Yeah, he had all 6 of his by 3/4 time. And even though it got hairy from there, the Cats managed to hold on. They never had the Bulldogs take the lead on them. The scores did get level with 7.5 minutes left.
Shannon Neal 5-goal game. Now, I've been a big Shannon Neal believer for a while. It's been frustrating how bad his hands have been, and that he did this in a game where his hands had been bad. He had dropped at least like 3 or 4 pretty easy marks early on.
He hadn't even kicked 4 goals before the game. He'd only kicked 3 once. And that he had 2 tolls both functioning for Geelong made this all the more satisfying. Neal's always contested well. We know what he can contribute in the ruck. We know that he's a darn good runner. But the fact that he was able to clean up some messes that he caused, and again, kick 5 goals straight, that was awesome.
It's easy to produce when things are going well. Like if, it would be nice if he had just had a really good game from start to finish. But for a young player to start a game poorly, recover and become such a positive contributor was a really pleasant surprise and just huge for the course of this game. And that go-ahead goal, he had gotten out back, and it was all set up because Jeremy Cameron took a contested mark in the middle of the field against Rory Lobb. They tried different guys on Cameron, Lobb, James O'Donnell. He beat all of them. And also, I love Cameron actually going upfield at times too, knowing that Neal was also able to function well enough and just also taking one of the defenders, particularly Lobb, further up and just out of the defensive 50. That stuff's key. I mean, that's the type of marking that we need to see from Cameron because we know that he can do it more so on the outside, but if he can take a defender with him, period,
then that's always going to matter. It's going to free things up for the likes of Neal, maybe Ollie Henry, or whoever else could get out the back. Dare I say Brad Close, even though he's not tall, just because get Brad Close the ball.
Yeah, and he's super fast. He had a bit of a quieter game.
That's why I was highlighting that. He only had, 8 touches?
Yeah, he did have an assist.
Brian Myers had 2?
Yes. But basically, the Geelong forwards won this game because the Dogs did have the better of the midfield. Bailey Smith was solid, so was Max Holmes. I forget who it was that pointed out that, basically the recruiting strategy when they decided to draft Max Holmes was just like, hey, this guy's really fast. Maybe he'll learn how to play football, and it's working.
You might not know it to look at me, but I can run really, really fast.
But the Dogs did have the better of the midfield, not by an overwhelming margin, but by, it was noticeable. Ed Richards, just ridiculous. 2 goals, 28 disposals, 10 clearances, 7 tackles, 3 assists. Matthew Kennedy, 3 goals, 25 disposals, 7 marks, 5 clearances. Another 9 clearances and 2 goal assists for Libba. And to be able to overcome that and win, and just be good enough to not get completely run over in the midfield was great. I forget who it was who had said, Ed Richards, the breakout player of the year, except I would disagree. I would say he's been the breakout player since the middle of last year. And, I'm so unsurprised by every awesome thing he's doing.
But we know about Richards, how he's able to spread the oval and have the speed, use different angles. I think you talked about that a lot last week with his role against Essendon, and it was on display again here. On a narrower and longer ground as well, that's where the speed really comes into play. Who would you categorize as the true breakout player of this year, then?
I think it might be Matt Kennedy.
Weird to say because you would typically say someone younger, but Kennedy had obviously just been maligned. He was the one that was matched up on Bailey Smith more often than not. You could make a case, a totally justifiable one, that Kennedy has been a better player than Bailey Smith this year. But I think it's pretty obvious that Smith has been more important to his team because what is this Geelong midfield if he's not there? Whereas, as good as Kennedy has been, I think the Dogs midfield could survive without him when you have Richards doing this, Libba basically not aging at all, Bont, Frazier, who's been a little quieter lately, but... And reinforcements to come.
Yes, that's the point. Whereas Bailey Smith, because, between just what the midfield was and then who's not there because of possible poor life decisions.
And also Dangerfield going forward and then doing his hamstring.
Yeah, Smith's been so necessary to this. And these last couple games, unlike the Brisbane game, it's been kind of like this is what you're here for. We needed a midfielder who could go out and go toe-to-toe with the best. And he did that. I think the main surprise of this game for me was Neal. Most of the other things kind of followed the trends of success for both teams throughout the year, and especially over the past month. It was nice to see Tom Atkins get rewarded with a goal in the second quarter. Geelong were just lethal on set shots. I believe by 3/4 time, they were 10 goals won from set shots, and it didn't get much worse. Speaking of lethal, Riley West, 2 weeks in a row, just anytime the ball goes near him, it's super dangerous. Kind of the way I feel about Brad Close. It's like, God, every time Riley West is involved, something good happens for his team. Felt like for the longest time, this is going to be one of those games where we don't pull away and then someone comes out of nowhere for the Dogs. And my guess for that was James Harms, and he nearly did. He ended up getting, I think, the behind that tied it.
Correct. West, by the way, 1-1 from 13. He doesn't need a lot of kicks or a lot of touches in general to have big impact on games.
7 score involvements out of 13 touches. That's ridiculous.
And I honestly think that he would still be able to do that even if Cody Waitman were there. Who would be the one marginalized, I guess? Maybe Latham Vandermeer?
Buku Kamas has done a really solid job as a tall forward lately. That's been nice to see. Not as nice in this game, but other games it makes me happy.
The Dogs have been able to kind of plug the hole as well because of their depth that we knew had existed, just hadn't been properly deployed. And I think more players are in the proper spots right now than they've been in, the past 3 years, we'd say.
Yeah, and I think this is a team that's similar to Hawthorn and GWS. This team might be so loaded that there are a couple of guys that are going to end up on some other list in a much bigger role.
I honestly think if Waitman gets healthy, Vandermeer could be one of those guys because we knew his versatility before this, and now he's been a more consistent player and more consistent goal kicker, already matched his career high in goals with 10 in just 9 games. He doesn't need a lot of touches to do a lot.
We've gone on for a while on this game, but it is clearly the most compelling game of the round, not just on a narrative point, but in terms of excitement and everything that went into it. A few other quick things to tie up here. Tyson Stengel tweaked his hamstring in the third quarter, and I thought he was going to get subbed out. He stayed in and played his ass off. He was great.
You know what the nice thing is it's easy to rest him this week.
I would be unsurprised if he doesn't play this week, but
same thing about Bailey Smith. I mean, he wouldn't have played on the 5-day break if it weren't against the Dogs. We found out that he had gotten 4 shots to the shin at halftime.
And I wouldn't be surprised if definitely like a couple of outs this week going up for the trip to Perth.
I mean, I've just named 2 of them.
Yeah. I think because Mitch Duncan's from there, he probably will get to decide for himself. Wouldn't be surprised if Tom Stewart's out. Connor O'Sullivan will come back in. I really liked giving him that week off. I think it was perfect timing. I would think one of Duncan or Buse doesn't play.
That ought to be fully up to Duncan, East Perth kid.
Other positive. Ollie Henry, while still not racking up huge numbers, has been so much more physical and involved since he was dropped to the sub role a few weeks ago. And yeah, it seems to have had the desired effect. And Geelong goes 2-0 in Sir Doug Nicholls' round for the first time since 2022. Went 0-2 each of the last 2 years.
Hey, at least you could expect the same result each time.
I didn't know what to expect. I actually felt kind of confident coming into this game. I definitely felt confident in the Port game. I felt slightly confident coming into this game, and then also felt some nerves, and then, man, the Dogs came out and looked great. We did not defend the first or third quarter, especially in the midfield, but won both 50s handily in the second quarter and made up for closing the first 3 quarters all poorly by doing enough things right. And I look to come out of a game like this with a win, a 14-point win, by the way, led by 20, and then the Dogs got a last-second goal that didn't matter. To be able to come out of this and say, there's still things to improve after beating a team that was on its game. I think when the Dogs are on, they are really hard to beat. And they were not perfect, but they were awfully good. That makes you feel pretty good about the upside. And now you've gotten through most of the tougher parts of the schedule. You still have 2 of the next 4 games against the Suns and Lions. Both of those are at home at least. But yeah, this is encouraging. Let's address the umpiring real quick. Free kick count was 26-12. It probably should have been, I don't know, more like 23-15 or something. And then I think there would have been a lot less uproar about it.
It was the high tackles that were the big issue.
The high tackle calls, I can admit, high tackle calls definitely went in Geelong's favor. That I will absolutely 100% agree to. But at the same time, Libba got away with a bunch of throws. Vandermeer and a couple others had times where they didn't get pinged for holding the ball despite getting wrapped up for like multiple seconds.
It's almost like they're so used to Geelong putting on the pressure that they don't realize, oh, wait a minute, there was prior there. I don't think the umpiring changed the result of this game.
I don't mind it.
As questionable as the umpiring has been this year, I still do not believe that it has truly changed the outcome of any one game. And I don't expect it to stay that way, but I'll appreciate it while it does.
Yeah, it'll happen at some point, but like,
please not to the Crows. It's going to be the Crows, isn't it?
It would be funny if it happened literally right in front of me.
Right in front of me!
Dream time at the G. Sadly, bit of a snooze. Essendon 11-15-81, defeating Richmond 8-10-58. I was excited for this going in because of Richmond's form, but then we found out that Toby Dankervis would be managed, and you were never really optimistic after that.
This game was like what I would have expected a lot more frequently from Richmond at the start of the year. Like, not an abject disaster, but just not good enough.
It wasn't just Dankervis being out, to be fair. Tom Lynch was concussed, and Noah Balta had his curfew. So that's a huge amount of leadership that spans the full oval that was not there for this game.
The Noah Balta thing might get even stupider because they've got a game in Sydney against GWS, and they're thinking about maybe like trying to get him to play in the curtain raiser if they can get him to fly back in time. Like, can we not all see how stupid this is on every front?
I'm not sure if yakety sax is the appropriate music at this point, but some silly thing like that.
It's stupid.
Incredibly so.
Like I've said from the start, this should have been either like you're not playing period or you can play. It would have been funny to see him like actually playing with an ankle monitor.
That's the solution. Holy cow.
I remember once when I was in high school, there was a kid on another team that had one.
A high school basketball game.
Yes.
It was a 9-point game at halftime. Richmond did briefly lead in the middle of the third quarter, but not able to run it out. From the point that they took the lead, they were outscored 33-8.
And 6 of those 8 came like on the final siren.
And this was despite a round of injury concerns for the Bombers, including Sam Durham. Kyle Langford had already been taken out with a quad injury. Zach Reed then was taken out for hamstring tightness. More so a precaution, they say. Richmond then had Sam Lawler be ruled out with a hamstring concern. So had we seen, I asked you this, we might have seen at this point, from the start of round 10 through the end of Dreamtime, 11 games, we might have seen more hamstrings done in that time than Jeremy Cameron goals.
I don't know. I'll have to check, but it was definitely close. Let's see. What made me happy about this game? They got the Yayukin medal right, I think. It did belong with Nick Martin. I actually really liked him in this game. It wasn't just like volume stuff. He showed some really great skill on different parts of the oval. He had a goal that he tapped out of midair that was pretty nice. He had like started outside the forward 50. He was like heavily involved in different parts of sequences. And I think really skilled. Like he had just a couple of little kicks and knock-ons and instinctual things that are like just little stuff that you can't teach. And he did that with a super high motor. And this was one of the best games I've seen him play.
2 goals from 35, 6 clearances, 8 tackles, and 9 marks. A grand total of 10 scored balls for him. Second to Sam Durham with 12. The clear top 2 there.
And 6 intercepts. And 12 contested possessions.
This is easily the most complete game we've seen from Nick Martin. And it's funny because his 5-goal debut was brought up in the context of another Essendon player in this game who we'll get to in a second. Do people forget that was all in garbage time in that round 1 country game? He should never have been the Rising Star nominee for that round. We have gone over this so often here. Anyway, this might have been Nick Martin's most complete game yet. Was on the inside pretty much from the moment he got around the center square. And one of the big reasons why he was able to play inside so much was because of the wing and flank play from debutant Angus Clark. 3 goals in the first half, stayed involved in the second, and I think among their best. I'm wanting to see if a mix of Clark, Xavier Dersma, and Archie Roberts could be that long-term wing solution for them. I'm big on looking for the solutions on wings, guys who can play on opposite sides of the oval from each other. I liked how Clark and Dersma linked up on Friday, so I don't want to take that away from them. So that's why I also thought about Roberts there. With those 3, and on the younger side too, Dersma easily the most senior of them, I want to see if that could keep working on the outside, and that will keep Martin free and Durham free to play in the center and Merritt to do whatever he damn well pleases in the forward 2/3.
There are a couple things I liked in this game, little things I wanted to highlight, but first I wanted to highlight something I like that's going on right now. Ryan is curled up next to me and he's snoring, and I think I got some audio of it, but he's like snoring loudly enough that my face doesn't have to be right next to his face to hear him snoring, which this is rare. You know how sometimes when a team has no ruck nominated, the other ruckman is just like lost? Like, what do? I don't have anyone to contest against. What if you just catch the ball and kick it? And Peter Wright actually did that for the go-ahead goal.
Peter Wright as second ruck is working. We live in a world where Todd Goldstein and Peter Wright are the ruck duo. And, Wright is pitching a decent amount. Had 18 hitouts in this game to go along with his 2 goals, 3. Goldstein clearly winning the battle against Samson Ryan. I just love that Todd Goldstein still got it. Yes, against lesser competition, but still completely functional. It was also impressive Essendon to close out the game with their tall stocks being so depleted in the second half between Langford having gone down early, Reed going out. It was pretty much Goldstein and Wright at the end. So injury list, not looking pretty, but they finished off this one. No pressure, though. They've only got a short turnaround to go to the GABA.
I mean, it's a 6-day turnaround. It's not as bad, but I think Essendon fans are mostly being pretty rational, understanding that they're not as good as their record. They've beaten up on some gettable teams and are going to have some legit challenges moving ahead and are not going, oh my God, we're going finals. We're going to win everything. I think at least the Essendon fans that we know seem to be pretty rational about this.
Essendon gone to grand final?
No, they are not gone to grand final.
If there were any equivalent of Yinzers, it will be Collingwood or Port, I guess.
I'll let you know more from firsthand experience in a couple months.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, testing our observations from afar with the real life scenarios. I wanted to touch on a couple things for Richmond in this game, obviously. Why was Hugo Ralphsmith still matched up on Angus Clark when Clark pushed forward? Hugo was not that sort of defender at all.
No, Hugo's a running defender.
He was very much exposed in the defensive 50. Did fight back on the offensive side with 2 goals, but improper use of Ralphsmith. Yes, he's going to grow from this game. No, I don't think it's going to be anything that really is a long-term positive change that should change how he's played.
Yeah, I agree, but it's like Richmond is in a position where they can just throw things out there and see what happens. I thought the pregame entertainment was really good.
I am liking Kane McAuliffe with steadier time and accurate field kicking. I think he and Tom Brown look like they could be important distributors long-term, and I've maintained my positive stance on McAuliffe since I saw him debut, which, if I'm correct, was all the way back last year back home in South Australia. And then also special to see Ryan Mansell kick a goal in the jumper that he and his family designed. We had a few cases of that these past couple weeks. Lawson Humphreys last week against Port, Nasiah Wanganeen Miller this week.
Nick it this week.
I was going to leave that one for later, but yes, Kazi in the jumper his dad designed.
I thought the pregame entertainment was really cool. Like, obviously, I don't have a huge point of reference to go off here, but it seemed like the message that was trying to be sent was like it was a good combination of celebrating Indigenous contributions to sport and culture, but also acknowledging that, there's a lot of hurt and a lot of anguish over the past. And it seemed like just a really good blending of those things.
And you've got the right sort of people to carry that message with Brace and Paul Kelly.
And it was done in like a presentable and non-patronizing way, because sometimes like talking about a sensitive matter can come off as condescending very easily. And this seemed like it was all done appropriately. I still think off of the now 6 years of Dreamtime games we've watched, my favorite in terms of just like the overall experience was the way it was done in 2021 in Perth. Like they had these drummers after goals and stuff that were super cool. And I'd love if they could incorporate a little more of that. But overall, just a really well done experience altogether.
I wish the Eagles and Dockers just co-opted some of what they did for the Dreamtime out there into their own. On to Saturday, Carlton 12-10-82. Defeated by the Greater Western Sydney Giants 17-8, 110. From goals to fines and everything in between, there will only ever be one Toby Green. And hell yeah, this was his game to start and his game to finish, and a lot of solid contributions in between. Captain Toby in his 250th, the highest rated Giant on the field, 3-3 from 28. 6 clearances, 4 tackles, a game-leading 13 score involvements. This is a game that I wasn't super optimistic about with the Giants because of how they tend to play and who they were missing, but for them to win with a contested and corridor-heavy style without any of Finn Callahan, Stephen Canelio, Brent Daniels, or Josh Kelly reflects extremely well on Coach Adam Kingsley and his staff in terms of their preparation and their selection. I highlighted multiple of the younger guys in there as big factors. Even though he was subbed out in the fourth, tactically, I liked what Cody Ango contributed. I think He and Harvey Thomas were solid on their handball connection throughout. Darcy Jones, more of a truer midfield role. Xavier O'Halloran was super frustrated last week, and it translated into a poor on-field performance. Stuck with it this time when they really needed him to.
I liked the way Connor Iden was kind of launching attacks from the back. Harry Himmelberg actually got involved further up the ground. Lockie Whitfield, this was one of the games where I thought he was actually really good beyond just he had a lot of disposals. He was really heavily involved in different parts of the ground on sequences, and I think part of that was, to help compensate for Callahan's absence. But I thought this was one of my favorite games I've seen Whitfield play.
Whitfield also helping with the generation of scores from defense, but yeah, more aggressive downfield from him than I'd seen in quite a while. It was a team when the Talls sharing the wealth in terms of the Talls sharing the wealth for the goal kicking. Please do remember that Callum Brown of El Sonidito fame is a forward. He had 3. Aaron Capman had 2. Jake Riccardi with 3 timely ones. And Jesse Hogan had his 4 straight as well. The 4 of those Talls combined to kick 12 goals straight.
Oh, speaking of Talls, how about the Tall defender?
I mean, you've got Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley.
Yeah, but they also had Lecalier in there, and I think it's pretty clear that there might be some matchups where it's not optimal to play all 3 of them, but these guys each individually are too good that if all 3 are available, you gotta play them. I don't care that in terms of actual disposal numbers, Lec only had 8. Had 8 spoils, second only to Buckley's 9, and just this was a pretty impenetrable trio that I really liked. And again, there might be some matchups where teams go small and you got to figure something out, but like I said, those 3 are too good. Alir has officially proved he is too good to be left out of the team, even if there's a matchup thing.
Well, Alir's been a name that's been brought up a lot for contract and trade reasons, out of contract, a non-free agent, and the Saints are the club that's continually brought up. With how well things worked in this game, considering you're going up against Mackay and Curnow and a taller group that has been doing better for themselves as of late, despite other struggles for the Blues, this was such an endorsement of having Lec in there full time, and if you want to keep him around, you got to keep playing him now.
It might be a bit of a similar situation to Callum Brown, where probably be looking elsewhere if he wants to be in a more prominent role.
Callum Brown is a forward.
I want to talk a little about the Toby Bedford Patrick Cripps matchup, because I think this one was fascinating. That was the obvious tag decision. On one hand, Cripps had 20 contested possessions, 25 disposals in all, had a goal, had 7 tackles, had 8 clearances, and you think, all right, the tag wasn't very effective, but then you look at the underlying numbers. Only 4 score involvements and 1 intercept possession. So what they were able to do, while you couldn't totally take Cripps away, which is an endorsement of his ability, Bedford in particular was able to make sure that his contributions really started and ended at stoppages instead of affecting the game on all fronts. He did have an early goal, but was pretty quiet. I guess that's the best case version of, you can't stop him, you can hope to contain him. Well, they did contain him.
Cripps did drive Bedford to the goal square a lot, and then Kingsley released that job a bit in the second half, which also allowed for Bedford to showcase the better part of his game. They attempted to break the tag, the Giants adjusted back, and yeah, just very pleasing there. Even though the Blues got thoroughly outplayed in the second half, it's not like they didn't come out firing in the first. I guess that's kind of a pattern for them, but the game definitely did turn as Kieran Briggs got the better of Tom DeConing, because the Blues led for considerable portions of the first quarter. And then Briggs, I'm not sure if it's exactly he flipped a switch or he just embraced the more physical side of things, but he outdid DeConing and also kicked my current leader of the clubhouse for goal of the year.
Guess what? It's not nominated for goal of the week.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Nope. There's another Ruckman goal that was nominated, but not this one.
Can we override this and name it our winner?
I think so. There are a couple others that I liked, but yeah, that's a bad oversight.
And I bet and because it's the Giants, I bet they're not going to fix it. He soccered a ball up right out of the air. But look, we know that this league disrespects the Giants. They can't even get Jake Riccardi's last name right in a tweet.
This game seemed to really break the spirits of a lot of Carlton fans.
I think part of it was because of the down performances for some of their more reliable players, two of them in particular, those being George Hewitt and perhaps even more notably, Jacob Wiedering just got fully beaten in this game.
Yeah, that's like someone said, like, all right, George Hewitt's finally going to have a down game and you're going to lose. And you look at that from the start of the year, it's like, wait, George Hewitt had been doing what? Oh, okay. We can take a down game from him. I still think, just with the schedule and everything where it is, I think Carleton's still in good shape to be competitive the whole way through the season. So I'm surprised that this was the game that broke so many people. Maybe because you're facing a GWS team that, aside from turning into the Harlem Globetrotters at Geelong, had been shit for a month plus. Maybe it had something to do with Callahan's absence. Although I don't think a lot of people outside of GWS know how much of a significant absence that is. So I'm going to be skeptical of that being a factor. It was surprising to me that this was the game that was the tipping point for a lot of people.
On the positive side for the Blues, though, best game I've seen out of Cooper Lord. A goal and an assist from 21, 4 clearances and 4 tackles. We tend to see him involved kind of right in the middle and a bit on the flank in the forward half. We saw a fuller field game out of him.
Weird sub decision from Michael Voss, I thought.
I mean, Jackson Binns has been the sub a lot.
Oh, no, I'm not so much talking about that. I'm talking about who was subbed out. You took out Blake Akers, who I thought had been pretty decent, whereas Matt Carroll, Corey Durden, debutant Harry O'Farrell, and Lewis Young had all been pretty much silent. It was like, and you're taking out Akers? Really? Hawthorn 8-12-60 defeated by Brisbane 14-9-93. The Hawks lost the free kick count. It happened.
In 2 words, my reaction to this game, fuck yes.
This was fun. This was extremely fun. Just even though it killed my gauntlet.
This was your gauntlet?
Yeah, a couple years ago, this game had killed my gauntlet in the other direction. I was just like, all right, Brisbane always loses on the road to the Hawks.
This did not kill my gauntlet. I'm alive and well. I'm one of the 15,614 still alive going into round 12, and I feel confident. Up until round 15, I feel confident.
So free kicks for the game were 23-13, and the Hawks, I'm going to be honest, they acted like little bitches about it. You had a 50 on James Sicily because he dropped a ball in a tackle. It probably would have been a ball up had he not dropped it. And then he gave away a 50 to take Achi to the goal square, and Achi kicked his 4th and final goal.
Yeah, not like Achi needed a lot of help. This is another game where Achi, I think, is getting the praise that he's deserved for so long just because he's finding the score sheet. But Achi's been a very versatile player for Brisbane over the years, and now he's a more consistent goal kicker. The coolest goal kicking for this game, though, was not about Calamachi.
I mean, it was the uniform he and his family designed, so that was cool, but...
Oh, shit, that was another one, yeah, but Charlie Cameron kicked 3 in 4 minutes, and to me, and I think to everyone that isn't a Freo fan, or maybe an Adelaide fan, this is way better than Murphy Reed's 4-goal flurry from round 1. Considering how much Charlie has struggled this year, considering that it's in the Sir Doug Nichols round, Country Roads being sang by the Lions fans at the G. This was awesome. There's hardly a better guy for this to happen to.
I was impressed by the Lions on pretty much all fronts after a couple weeks of stinkers. Dane Zorko, or Zane Dorko, as some may call him now. I think a lot of people already forgot that, but I like it. I like Zane Dorko.
Well, he had super functional kicking all day and drove the play through the corridor a lot.
This has been between him, Whitfield, and Nick Martin. It was a big week for guys who usually just have big possession numbers. Like, there was substance behind pretty much all of them.
Like, the one guy that was really missing from this round, I guess, in the same way, was like Harry Sheasel.
Yeah, I guess.
But Brisbane were better on all parts of the ground. Really, once Cameron had his burst, that was definitely, I mean, it was 33-all late in the second quarter. And then Cameron had his 3 in 4 minutes. And then the Lions got one more before the half from Levi Ashcroft. And the first goal out of the second half from Cam Rayner, who also had a bit of a burst.
Connor Nash getting that over an ear massage was one of the wildest moments I've ever seen. Hawthorn has a midfield problem, just like last year. They cannot seem to really win without Will Day out there. Now, since Day went down, they do have 3 wins, but those 3 are North, Richmond, and Melbourne. Nash, quieter, first game back, all right. Warple, quieter. Jai Newcomb got better as the game went on, which he tends to do, but he was not at his best. He was wearing a boot coming back from Darwin, and I think you could still see some of the effects of that. He was just not up to his usual speed.
I think the biggest thing he did in this game was German suplex Jared Berry.
But clearances were 41-24 for Brisbane.
And I mean, yes, this is the Lions midfield we're talking about, but Cluggage has done so much at the source. And then Lockie Neal, 32, on his 32nd birthday, the best player directly off that initial clearance. It's clicking in the way that you would expect it. You'd watch the first 10 Brisbane Lions games of this year.
But I mean, still, one guy alone should not drop Hawthorn to -17 in clearances. That is troubling.
I'm going to cut Newcomb some slack because of his injury.
Yeah, it's not just Newcomb. It's that they are clearly so reliant on Will Day being out there. And despite all of the time he's missed, they really haven't been able to come up with a lot of solutions there.
It's still 2 to 3 months for him, by the way. No pressure, though. They've only got Collingwood and the Bulldogs before the bye. Also, Newcomb should have been suspended. I cannot believe that he wasn't. And there are a couple things that I have to say about that. Firstly, I mean, we know that the flowchart is fucked where outcome matters more than action. Concussion, obviously, should not automatically mean 3 games, but that's what happens when the league is scared about the upcoming lawsuits. Also, I don't get why they did away with the points system, because if you're finding someone $10,000 at this point for a 5th rough conduct violation, that's the point where a sort of accumulation thing needs to take effect and you suspend them. I'm thinking like technical foul accumulation in the NBA. Now, Jai Newcomb is far from being Draymond Green, obviously, but between that particular action and the fact that it's his 5th fine, something should have been done there to discipline him more, because that play was so incredibly dangerous. And especially for somebody who's had his documented concussion struggles recently, too, with Jared Berry. I'm glad he didn't come off of this with another one. Biggest things that worked for Hawthorn, Carl Lehman, steady contributions like always. We gave him the polished Turk nod. Had he gotten the ball more, I think we might have gone with Massimo D'Ambrosio, because that's just who he is.
He finished with 19 disposals, but he was stuck on like 12 pretty late in the game, and all of their better early sequences involved him in some capacity. And then they totally went away from him, which is a big mistake. Like, even if you're getting beaten in the middle, as they obviously were in this game,
that's another reason to try to take things to the outside and involve him then.
You've got, between him and Amon, speed and guys who were just really good at using the ball.
Outside players in particular. So, yeah, that was a mistake. But I want to finish by highlighting the Lions' defense. Jack Payne was excellent again. This time, though, he was playing out of the goal square against Jack Gunston. That he can exchange roles with Harris Andrews so easily, game in and game out, says a lot for their chemistry and also the coaching that Chris Fagan and backs coach Dale Morris are doing. By the way, happy 200th as a head coach for Chris Fagan. Fitting that it came against Hawthorn.
I love that, like, they wanted to cheer him off and he said no, so they just gave him like a little guard of honor. That was funny.
I remember there was a conversation on Twitter this week about, who is the best defender in all of the AFL. And while Andrews is up there, I don't know if I could separate what Andrews does from what Payne does, because the two of them are so interdependent. And it really shows when Payne has missed time.
I think it's between Andrews and Sam Taylor, and I think I'd lean Taylor maybe, but
I think Taylor could do more on his own than Andrews can, but this is just, again, going into praise of Jack Payne.
In terms of full field contributions, I'll take Andrews. In terms of just like shutting a dude down, probably go Taylor by a bit.
Also, I hope Noah Answorth checked his pockets before he boarded the flight back to Queensland. There's a chance that Nick Watson might still have been in there.
Oh, good stuff out of Brisbane's injury report that I think Brandon Starcevich is finally inching towards an actual return, which would be great, just because He was so good during the end of season run and throughout finals last year. Not that they need the help, but I would like for his brain not to be oatmeal.
That's honestly terrifying that he's also nearing a return because of what Answorth has done. I mean, Nick Watson is a worst on round candidate, and if we put it up to a poll on Twitter, he would win it. Answorth completely shut Watson down. Watson behind from 4.
I want to talk a little bit more. You mentioned Jack Payne. In a lot of games, he's like when Brisbane started to come back, he's come further up the ground and like helped keep the heat on with intercept marks to not let the opponent pass midfield. This time, he was doing stuff in the goal square to help protect the lead when it felt like Hawthorn could have made a push during that third quarter. And it's just remarkable because this is a guy that a couple years ago, I kind of thought I was just kind of a big goofball, too skilled to be described as a lumbering oaf, but not exactly like the most agile guy out there. And you look at just how well he's played lately, it's really impressive.
It is episode 200.
Benjamin, 78% of our listeners are between 18 and 35 years old, so they probably want to start a podcast like we did. How did you know that number, Ethan? Thanks to the analytics we have for Spotify for Podcasters. Formerly known as Anchor, sorry Frio fans, Spotify for Podcasters has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. No fancy software needed. It's so easy you can edit it while drunk. And Spotify for Podcasters doesn't just allow you to upload to Spotify, you can also distribute your podcast on platforms like Apple, Stitcher, and more just like we do. Best of all, it's completely free. Not only is it free, you can even make money from listener support or ad revenue. Hint, hint. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started today.
39 of America's watching the footy. Benjamin Castle here at BenjaminHK01 on Twitter.
Ethan Castle at Castle Media on Twitter. I'm in South San Francisco. He's in San Diego. Brian Harambe, the executive producer, is also right here in South San Francisco.
At Cat Named Brian on Instagram. By the way, Castle with a K, we still have to say this. We are collectively at Americans Footy on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And I look forward to Ethan doing all sorts of photo dumps when he's on his footy pilgrimage soon.
I've got some fun things planned, and we'll see what else. There are definitely going to be some days where I have things planned, some days where I just wing it.
I mean, I know you're doing Great Ocean Road. I know you're going to look at the Dolphin Sanctuary in SA.
Rottnest Island seems like an obligatory Perth thing.
All right, that's where the quokkas are.
There are definitely some days of just, aimless exploring and wandering.
Make it down to Denmark to see where the penguin was.
That seems unlikely.
I still cannot believe that happened. An emperor penguin washing up on the West Australian coast. He was, I believe, released back into the water. So, hope Gus ended up finding his way back. Let's get back into things here.
Remember how last year Collingwood had a 54-point turnaround to beat North? They did it again, except this time they were only down 9 at first.
North Melbourne 9-9-63, defeated by Collingwood 15-18, 108. North led this game by 9 at halftime, trailed by just 3 at three-quarter time, but Collingwood had definitely had the run of play in their favor. They kicked 3 goals, 8 in the third, and we had another 54-point turnaround.
North played a really good first half and then ran out of steam.
That's kind of what we expect from the bottom 3 right now.
Yeah, they were not overmatched. They were competitive up until halftime. This game was still within reach at the end of the third, not so much by their own doing, but more by Collingwood at that point had kicked 7-17.
Collingwood, by the way, were missing both Pendlebury and Sidebottom and Bobby Hill. Hope things are all right. There was a personal thing, apparently exceptional circumstances, to the point that Oleg Markov, who wasn't an emergency, was brought in. He was ready to just be working on his house and shopping at Bunnings.
And then he got a goal. That was really cool, as they were pulling away. But this game will be the great test to tell us, do the umpires actually know a thing about anything?
And your belief is?
Well, the coaches' votes don't encourage me, honestly, because I thought there was a clear best on ground in this game. There are some, stats that typically go together. The guy who kicks a lot of goals has a lot of score involvements. I don't think it's too often you see a guy who doesn't kick a goal or a behind register double-digit score involvements and also double-digit tackles. Like, this was a freakishly amazing game from Ned Long. 29 disposals, 14 tackles, 6 clearances, 2 assists, 15 score involvements, 3 intercepts. Yeah, double-digit score involvements and tackles. Those things don't go together. A hair over 79% efficiency with nearly half of his disposals contested. Nick Dacos was quite good, but this was Ned Long's game. Nick Dacos, by the way, 12 score involvements, just a hair under 20% of his disposals were contested. He had 38 of them, but was operating at just 60% efficiency. Did have 2 assists as well, but like Jamie Elliott did have 5 goals, but he was mostly just getting on the end of stuff rather than creating. And he did a good job. But he only had 3 other score involvements outside of those 5 goals. So I think
The correct call is Long. The call we expect is Nick.
this was a unicorn game from Ned Long.
Ooh, not a term we use that much.
Again, double-digit tackles and score involvements. And like, how are you possibly considering giving anyone else the 3 vote? How does he not get a perfect 10 from the coaches? Like, I mean, Jeremy Cameron not getting a perfect 10 was also wild. There's a chance that one coach, I would assume Chris Scott, gave Bailey Smith 5 and the other gave him 0. I'll have to look into the math on that, but that is a possibility.
Oh, other people have been on the case already, and it's strongly believed.
I thought it was pretty clear the 5 should go to Cameron and the 4 should go to Ed Richards if we're throwing it back to that.
We knew that Long was capable of like a good 70% of this, maybe the tackling and the score involvement more independent from each other. But to put it all together, even against an opponent that was withering away in the second half out of lack of experience, is still fucking awesome.
I'm calling this a unicorn performance.
Is that what we're going to call now for double-digit tackles and score involvements, or is it just a description we're going to use at our own judgment?
Any rare combination of things like that, whether it's tackles and score involvements or any combination of stats that don't usually go together. And I mean, it both passed the eye test and the actually look at the numbers test. Like, all respect to Nick Dacos, another solid game for him, but this was not his best. He wasn't super efficient or accurate, and he was still good. He was still easily one of the 3 most important players in helping Collingwood win this game. But like, guys, did you not watch what Ned Long just did? For Dacos, Long, and Elliott to each get 8 coaches' votes is insane. No, again, I'm hammering this home. The perfect 10 should have been for Long, and it really shouldn't have been any sort of debate. This was so obviously just like an otherworldly performance out of him. If Nick Dacos did this, if any player did this, I'd be saying like, oh my God, what a freak. This is amazing. And it just happened to be Ned Long, and regardless of name, he should be getting the credit here.
I will also credit Collingwood for finding the best way to use Ned Long and for just letting Ned be Ned. Credit for being undermanned in winning this game. And it's not just that they were without Pendlebury and Sidebottom. This was supposed to be the 200th game together for Raiden Maynard and Scott Pendlebury, and also for Steele Sidebottom with Maynard. And Maynard basically hardly played as well, and we're hoping for the best there because, yes, he's a prick on the oval, but also is as entertaining as it gets because of that, and seems like just a great guy off the oval. Looks like it's only 1 to 2 weeks for a plantar fascia rupture, which is a very short timeline for an injury like that, I think.
It sounded a lot worse. We'll see what actually comes of it, but between that and no Darcy Moore, I believe Moore is expected back from that, AC joint, right? He's expected back this coming week.
Yeah, for the Friday against Hawthorn, and that is a sellout.
Isaac Quainer was the one who really led the defense, along with, of course, Billy Frampton, who, remember, is a Premiership player. I don't know if people know that. So, little obscure fact, kind of insider knowledge.
I think what less people will know is that Billy Frampton has played for both the Adelaide clubs.
Jack Crisp got better as the game went on. That was significant. And it was a quiet night for Mason Cox. Nathan Buckley had been critical of his performance, but then in the fourth quarter, he actually had a couple of big knock-ons and deflections and stuff that ended up helping them pull away. Like, he had a deflection to Ned Long that led to Harry Perrin's goal on the run. Also had a block on Charlie Coleman that could have been a free. I'm sure if you're a North fan, you think it's a block and a free kick for North. If you're a Collingwood fan, you think it's a great play. I thought This seemed to be a legal block, but it set up Jamie Elliott's 5th goal. That put them up 9, which at that point had been their largest lead, and then they just ran away from there. Like I said, North ran out of steam.
I do think that this is going to be the last go around for Mason Cox. There are things that are developing on the taller side for Collingwood, and also just obviously a decline in performance over the past couple of years. But Mason still has his spots where he's useful in particular matchups. I don't think he's someone who is necessarily in their best 23, but you're going up against Tristan Jerry. Even though Darcy Cameron has been very good this year, I still like having the backup there. And just the other tall presence when you're without Moore. If Moore's back this week, even though Lloyd Meek has been doing well, I still think Mason probably makes way.
I mean, they're going to have, 5 guys healthy this week? Now, obviously, Maynard's one of the outs, but you're going to have to make room elsewhere. You know what was a positive for North? There's been a positive the last couple weeks now. It's Dylan Stevens.
I don't think North or Sydney fans were expecting this.
Yeah, 23 disposals, 12 marks. Not the most efficient game out of him. A little over 56%, but I liked him overall, and he's just brought good energy, and this is a team that, you're starting to see fewer and fewer players who are
Passengers.
deserving of AFL level games.
Passengers is the term.
Yeah. Also, I thought, for what it's worth, Caleb Daniel was actually pretty clean. Didn't have, and that's 2 weeks in a row now. I think Caleb Daniel's been able to avoid some really, really bad turnovers. So that's nice.
A quieter game out of Kobe McKercher after one of his very best, perhaps his very best last week. Tough opposition. I'm not entirely surprised. Still did manage 4 clearances and an assist out of his 13. They need more bang for buck per disposal there. Still, though, comparatively down game. Riley Hardiman ranked quite highly as well. The 4th highest rated North player in this game. 28 and 10 marks for Hardiman. How'd you see him, Ethan?
I thought he was all right. I didn't think he was amazing or anything, but he was solid.
And nice to see Tom Powell bounce back 1-1 from 28. Our expectations on him have definitely been tempered from this guy's got a really high ceiling, could be this transformative guy for them too. He'll pop up every bit for them. We just don't know how often that bit is. We're looking for consistency from him is the point.
Fremantle 15-10-100 defeated Port Adelaide 7-9-51.
Wyalup over Yardapulte. Wyalup remain undefeated. There's something to take out of this.
The meme with the buff dog and the wimpy dog? The wimpy dog is... and the buff dog is Wyalup.
Ooh, I like that. The Dockers stuck with what worked last week against the Giants. A much more aggressive approach. It was a bit sloppy at times, rain notwithstanding, but they kept the pressure on Port, and they could have easily won by more. They just weren't consistent with last kicks and connections inside 50. They did have greater disposal efficiency inside 50. The count was almost even. It just took a while for Freo to get really bang for buck from their entries. They did kick at least 3 goals in each quarter. They did win every quarter, but there's also much where they could still be doing better. Luke Jackson was strong again as the sole ruck, the highest rated player with ease. Yes, against a somewhat lesser opponent in Dante Vicentini, but the point stands, and I'm surprised that Jordan Sweet stayed out. Vicentini did have a fair number of hitouts to advantage, but Sweet should be back in, especially after a pretty strong performance in a narrow win over North Adelaide at the Sandful, where he had 2 goals and 42 hitouts.
He had started the year pretty nicely, too.
Don't get me wrong, I like the wake-up call. I'm just surprised that he was kept out against this opponent in particular. I mean, great opportunity for Vicentini and didn't do too poorly, but Luke Jackson was superior. I want to credit Bailey Banfield for taking the sub role in stride. Cooper Simpson suffered a nasty AC joint injury, was very visible how much things were out of place, and Freo kept posting the photo on their socials too for some reason, but that was before the halfway point of the first quarter.
There's this cultural thing I've noticed in Australia that you can't show bad things happening. People were mad that one of the journalists had said that there was a medical emergency that had cleared out a section at the MCG during the Melbourne-Sydney game. Yes, her job is to report on the news. This is news.
Reception was also negative toward just showing Simpson's injury like that on the socials. but it was there. I mean, it was on a clean bump that Logan Evans put on, and it was actually on a play that ended up leading to Wyalupp's first goal. But Simpson had done really well last week playing at halfback. Didn't expect Bailey Banfield to be able to do the same, but yes, quite a good job back there. He played on Darcy Bird-Jones before the latter was concussed, and we'll touch on that in a bit. But Banfield ended up with 8 marks and 17 disposals, but in a role kind of the opposite side of the oval from where he usually plays, 4 intercepts. So that was a huge positive, and that's how Banfield might need to keep getting into games, because those mid forwards, kind of hard to crack the lineup when you've got all of Isaiah Dudley, Matt Johnson, and Murphy Reed taking full advantage of their time with the ball. Reed looks like the real deal, as we know. Even though this was his first multi-goal game since his round 1 burst, he'd come in kicking a goal in 6 of Frio's prior 7, and he had 4 spread throughout this one. Also, just a reminder that Port Adelaide took Joe Barry 2 picks before Murphy Reed and traded up to do it.
Not that Joe Barry's necessarily a bad player, but
Ain't Murphy Reed. I liked how Josh Tracy stayed impactful despite going scoreless, because he kept doing well in contests against Alir. If you're not converting, if you're not marking, you still can at least contest, and when you're as big a body as Tracy is, that's a necessity. And I mentioned Banfield in the defense. I also want to mention another steadier defender there, that being Carl Warner, who was good again and cast as a small defender. I think that's largely been because of Brandon Walker's absence, but I would say Warner's been playing better defense now than Walker had been playing while he'd been in the past couple seasons as well. And I don't think that's a name that people expected to be getting a lot of attention this year. You caught on to Warner, you caught on to Wagner, I believe, pretty early, Ethan.
yeah, and you're right. Walker had been struggling. That was one that I had highlighted a couple of times.
I mean, he's been struggling with injuries and been struggling with form. So good on the other W's to step up. The other W something ERs, in fact. There were all sorts of 50s in the mid to late section of the third quarter. There were 50s that were in the 3 consecutive scoring passage. So there was comedy there. The rain was off and on in this game, and it seems like Australia doesn't know the meaning of light rain. And I guess that played into Frio's hands because they were okay with the chaos. They were okay because it went along with their aggression. And I want to see that continue for them because it's working, even if it's against what Justin Longmire believes in. Big test for them this week, Saturday afternoon at the Gold Coast Suns.
Something really stuck out to me from Max Lawton's 3-word analysis. His 3-word analysis of Port this week, sliding into irrelevancy. And I think that's spot on. And I hope that they can reverse this trend because whether you like Port or not, I mean, they've been relevant ever since we got involved with this. And it's more fun when they're relevant. Maybe angry Port fans in like a 5-18 season, there would be an entertainment factor to watching that for sure. But it's more fun when these guys are competitive and relevant. Whether you want them winning or not, you want them to at least be relevant.
And they did well by hand at speed early on, but that didn't stick throughout the game. I wonder how much weather played a role in there. Power were wasteful on their first half entries, and defensively, they missed a lot of tackles and pressure opportunities. I still credit Miles Bergman for taking on the game in the middle, especially with the horny one out. And he was consistently accurate throughout the game, but not a lot of guys went with him. This game was also begging for more of Ollie Lord, but whether it was up front or getting involved in marking elsewhere, he was unfortunately almost non-existent.
That's 2 non-existent games in a row for Ollie Lord. Outside of the Horn Francis absence, like what other absences could you credit Port struggles to, or how much can you just credit to their better guys not playing well?
I mean, I think it's a lot of that. I mean, Burton-Jones did get concussed in the first half, but we see them compete without Kane Farrell because of Jace Burgoyne stepping up. Didn't see much out of him. Sam Powell-Pepper, down game for him. I know he rated very poorly. You know, Rosie and Drew still got their stack of possessions. Drew with an octopus. Wines actually had the highest fantasy rating of the ground. And it's not like the biggest players for Port, especially the midfielders, who were particularly bad. They were just outdone by a collective effort. And it started from Jackson because his delivery was really solid. 38 hitouts, of which 18 were to advantage, had 8 of his own clearances, 1-1 and an assist from 21. He was the start of things for this game and got 9 votes. Okay. I'll have to take a look at this spread then. Murphy Reed with 7, Caleb Sarong with 6. Despite the suspension, Alex Pierce getting 5. I alluded to this earlier.
This is another great example
of how the flowchart is fucked.
Yes, because this should probably be a 1 or 2 game suspension because I think it was careless, but like you have to slow it down to see, oh, he elected to play the man there instead of the ball. If common sense was to prevail here, if this would be a 1 or 2 game suspension. And I don't get how we can keep having these issues, and yet the league hasn't managed to somehow like correct this yet.
Once again, I hope that the solution is reached during the off season. There's a point where when you're in the season, it's almost like you're in too deep that you can't change things now. And the off season is the time for changes. And I hope the changes aren't just fixing the flowchart. I hope the changes involve Michael Christian getting the hell away from the league.
You know, it's funny. I really thought that Luke Jackson as the primary ruck would work, but I thought the backup would be Oscar McDonald, not Patrick Voss.
Ah, yes, Patrick Voss. It was a big chest.
Will Pete Carroll take off his shirt for him, though?
Ah, like you did for DK Metcalf when he first met him?
Yes, that is one of the best photos of all time, especially without context, of just like shirtless Pete Carroll and shirtless DK Metcalf.
You know, Voss isn't lighting the Oval on fire or anything, but he's entertainment value, that's for sure. His goal in this game was celebrated.
He's like definitely a cult figure for sure.
He would make the all you're cool team.
I don't know. I feel like he could definitely have some haters somewhere.
Oh, he totally does. I mean, especially after the suspension that he already had this year. But I feel like he makes our you're cool team. On to Sunday. I was experiencing some of this during a baseball game in Anaheim and then driving back. Adelaide, 1914, 128, defeated the West Coast Eagles, 8-14-62. I said at halftime, this game seems not out of reach. And then near the end of the third quarter, it really fucking got out of reach. How about 5 goals in the final 7 or so minutes of the third quarter to remind us of what the West Coast Eagles are? How easy they can hemorrhage goals on defense without Jeremy McGovern. Josh Shelley, good throughout, ended up with 5 goals to tie his career high, which had come, mind you, in a loss, a debut loss. What is it with Adelaide players kicking 5 goals in a debut loss?
Who was his debut against?
I'll remind you with the word bathtub.
Oh, he was a round 1 debut?
Yes, he was. I believe that was one of our very first episodes.
Yeah, it was.
2022 round 1, the loss to Frio where Heath Chapman saved the day.
Heath Chapman's also been better the last couple of weeks. That's something else worth noting.
Oh, definitely. Actually, I got some coaches' votes. It ended up being sort of another inevitable thing that the Crows would win this and break it open like it was with Collingwood against North. I am not particularly dismayed by the result. I'm dismayed that Jake Waterman's done for the year.
Unit lost.
Yeah, this is sad.
Yeah, took a shoulder injury late on in the game in a pack where he just got crunched.
Seemed like no malice to it, just a football play.
The club has officially said he's out for the remainder of the season. So Oscar Allen, welcome back to being the number 1 forward for as long as you're here. I mean, should also provide opportunities for, I want it to be Jack Williams, but I have a feeling Archer Reed's going to get called back up first. Just experience in the both of them, please. That's what I hope for. The Eagles' first goal this game was Brady Hoff, his second goal in as many weeks, but the signs for the back unit as a whole are evidence as to why he should stay in defense. Yes, you're going to have a lack of experience in the middle, but they've got to build that up at the AFL level. As much as Tom Gross has struggled with knowing when to dispose of the ball, I don't think time in the waffle is going to teach him as well, even though he's probably going to get that. In the first half, West Coast were +3 inside 50s. They just weren't finishing what they managed to carry in there. And my positivity came from Waterman kicking one at the halftime siren. Within an hour of me saying that, I just tweeted, why the fuck did I say this? It was death by, I don't want to say 1,000 cuts, but maybe it's that many. Some of them self-inflicted, some of them just being overwhelmed by better opposition. I also do want to highlight Sandy Brock in defense because I think his performances have gone under the radar until Darcy Fogarty kicked a goal on him later on in the fourth quarter. His direct opponent hadn't kicked a goal on him in like 2.5 games. Obviously for the Crows, Rochelle was a big highlight with his 5 goals, but he didn't get the perfect 10, and I think this is correct.
I know Dawson got the perfect 10 and is in the lead.
Yeah, in the lead over Bailey Smith.
I love that we're at a point of the season. I'm sure the Brownlow count will look very silly and only favor a couple of players like last year, but I love how wide open this is right now.
I mean, it's how it should be. Dawson, not the most accurate kick as a whole, but kicked 2-3 with 2 assists from 27, 8 clearances and 10 score involvements, 9 tackles as well. You don't think of him as much as a pressure player, but he was doing everything in this game, and it was satisfying that Dawson was back with it. You saw him having a couple of those lethal kicks from inside 50 on his left, doing smart things down the wing.
He does presently lead the count on the AFL's Brownlow predictor at 17. There are 16 players currently projected to have double-digit votes, and one of those, it is worth noting, Noah Anderson with a game in hand.
Remember how we talked about Matt Rowell being the one to shine and win the Brownlow? Looking more and more like Anderson, if it's a son.
I forgot to mention this during the first game, but I'll throw it in. You know how we've talked about like Bont's teammates keeping him out of winning a Brownlow?
Namely Ed Richards now?
Yeah, it's basically, I think he and Ed Richards might end up taking a bunch of votes off each other where both would legitimately be in the running if they didn't have the other there. And it's not like they're stepping on each other's toes. They're both playing really well.
It's like the Petrarca Oliver Viney situation from a couple years back.
Yeah, it's just, I find this a fun study.
Much more functional game out of Riley O'Brien. Yes, you can say what you want about Matt Flynn and Bailey J. Williams being the competition, but it wasn't just the direct hit out stuff from him, though. He did have 45 of those and 14 to advantage. I thought he was better positioned over the full oval, did have 4 marks, a goal and an assist, and it just felt more like a more full game out of him, which is more of what he's going to need if he wants to stick around as a Crow. He's out of contract.
I did see that Riley O'Brien was the leader in score involvements for the Crows for this game.
When you get a stack of hitouts, that sometimes happens. He had 12 of them.
Normally, though, when he has big hitout numbers, it hasn't led to that. So this is a change of pace.
And that's another reason why I want to credit O'Brien. The other player that really impressed me in this game that I hadn't been as high on as of late, with just 14 touches, Dan Curtin did a lot over the full oval, 8 marks and an assist, was more involved in the forward half than I'd seen from him in quite a while, and it worked to good effect. 4 score involvements for Curtin and 5 intercepts too. He's a sort of in-between tall, and it's been tough to find a place for him when the other talls have been working so well for the Crows with their forwards converting. Even though Tex was out this game, Phil Thorpe still had his impact, and you've got Mark Keane being pretty steady down there in defense, and Josh Morrill holding things up too, Max Michelini being able to play above his size. But if you have Curtin as this strong marking presence all over the oval, doing what he can on the outside like I talk about, I love my tall wing marks, then that'll be a way to just find him natural time with the ball in hand. Melbourne 1917-131 defeating the Sydney Swans 12-6-78. This game was, I think, one that a lot of people struggled to tip, and we also knew about Narm's Sir Doug Nicholls round struggles, but this was a fucking great win.
Yes, that is the actual quote from Christian Petrarca's mom, Elvira. This was his 200th game. He was very good, but the obvious star of this one was Kazi Pickett. Both watching this in real time, not as closely, and going back for a closer rewatch, he really took over the middle quarters. Finished this game kicking 5-4. Also had what I think should be the behind of the round. We'll talk about that later. So he could have easily had 6 or 7, 24 disposals, 6 clearances, 13 score involvements. Yes, only 50% disposal efficiency, but I think that's because of the goal kicking. 11 contested possessions out of those 24. He was basically just running back and forth between the midfield and the forward lines. And I think we've talked a lot about how much we like seeing players impact the game on different levels, and he did a lot of that. He'd be involved in the center clearance, and then he'd go burst forward and end up getting on the end of either a goal or behind. It happened all the time. He was awesome. And to do it in a jumper that his dad designed makes it pretty cool too.
This is his 4th career game with at least 5 goals. 2 of those other ones happened within the past year. And the outlier is one that I very fondly remember when he lit up Traeger Park in 2022 round 18 against Port. And Alice Springs is next up on the docket for the D's.
And there was much rejoicing.
Against a Saints team missing one of their most important pieces. And this was kind of just like a parade of everything that's been good for the D's with some inaccurate goal kicking. They went 3-8 in the second quarter where they could have broken it open. Instead, they led by 22 at the half. Won the third quarter 5-3, which was enough to start to pull away. And then an 8-goal fourth quarter to really put it out of reach. I mean, up 36 at the end of 3, you felt good. Harrison Petty getting a goal to quickly answer one by Isaac Heaney, put him back up 36.
This was a rough watch for me for the first half. I just didn't think that either side would have really ended up satisfied between what the Swans were lacking and them being down by that and then barely having opportunities in the second quarter while Melbourne were just so wasteful. I do also want to say that Pistol Pete Laddams having the Swans only 2 goals in the first quarter is objectively hilarious because he's Pete Laddams.
I don't know how you describe it, but it was funny.
I don't know. Pete Laddams and Pat Voss, I think, have similar vibes, but we've just been so against Laddams for so long.
I think there's a general arc that most players take, in my eyes. You know, it's like you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. No, this is more you become the villain and then you kind of become like a funny meme character. And at this point, Pete Laddams, while not the best player out there, is definitely a funny meme character. But even though I am still pretty adamant that a lot would have to go right for Melbourne to be playing into September, the vibes have been so much better. I talked about this last week. I feel the same way this week, where like instead of feeling like, yes, we've got an interesting young core, but all of our good players are either bad now or leaving, like you're getting better games out of Clayton Oliver. Ed Langdon's been really good along the wings, and you're getting that development out of Langford, Lindsay, Windsor, etc. You got a higher energy game out of Bailey Fritsch. He was really sharp. Speaking of sharp, Harry Shark was actually good in the sub role.
I knew you were going to do that.
That was not intentional. I just looked and looked, oh, he was next on the list. Jake Melcham had another good game. Obviously, you're going to have multiple forwards playing well if you're scoring 131. Melcham finished 3-2 and has just been like that forward line that looked so bad for a while is just higher energy lately. Even though he didn't get a goal, only had a behind and an assist, I am loving what Cade Chandler is doing.
This is 5 out of 6 for the Demons, and though a lot of them have been against lesser opponents, I mean, the optimism is there. If it's not for this year, then the development and the mix of ages that they've had in has done a lot for them. I like what our friend Rick Shabani had posted in response to us. At the end, he said, at the end of the day, Goodwin is off the hot seat and they're experimenting with some new ideas and structures. They're not a chore to watch anymore, which is good. But he fears that they're still too Max Gone-centric, which I get.
I don't think they were in this game, which was nice. Biggest adjustment that really caught my eye in this game was Christian Salem was actually in the center square on the opening bounce and was kind of just, he was usually a bit behind, playing like fully in the midfield, but he was definitely playing further up the ground than I was used to. And I think that adjustment, Daniel Turner's development has allowed that. Now, Turner did have one moment where he kind of derped and marked on the goal line, wound around and kicked through the wrong post and conceded a behind. But that ended up being completely irrelevant and just a fun, goofy thing.
Tom McDonald had done that before, I believe. That's why I laughed about that in particular. Just like, oh, this is a Melbourne rite of passage.
Progression and development is so encouraging to see that they're less rigid in the way they're playing. Like, again, that they changed Salem's role. Like, this is a team that was so resistant to changing things for a while. And to see them actually do that is really, really encouraging.
Another solid game out of Caleb Windsor. Nothing special, but solid from him with 2 assists from 24. Clayton Oliver A goal from 31. The goal was in the fourth quarter, got a huge reaction. His pressure and defensive midfield role has become really important to this in-season resurgence from the Demons, and he rotated on a few different opponents in this game and was decent to good on all of them.
I also want to mention we had something that I think is kind of rare and amusing in this game, what I call the tactical medical sub. Callum Mills got Charlie Spargo with a high bump late in the third quarter. Mills has a 1-game suspension that the Swans have accepted. Eventually, the concussion spotter got it and sent Spargo off for an HIA, which he ultimately passed. But when he came off for that assessment, the D's just subbed him off with the logic of, all right, it's late in the third quarter. Even if we get him back, we got to wait 20 minutes. And yes, he did end up passing it, but it was the right decision to make in that moment.
Do you still call it a medical sub because he went in for the HIA?
Yes, I do. But I think it's worth noting that the D's handled this wisely, because I think we've seen teams in other situations where it's I think Collingwood, I guess they kind of did it with Darcy Moore this year. We've seen it once in past years, but I think this is just a smart thing that should happen more often. I mean, ideally, people aren't having to go for concussion assessments, but if you haven't made that sub yet and you know that this guy's going to be gone for 20 minutes minimum, if it's late enough in the game, just make that move. I am starting to become actually concerned about the Swans. Now, yes, this was Mills' first game back.
And he's suspended again.
Yeah, it's not like he was going to set the world on fire immediately, but they were obviously down another key player in Justin McInerney, who's going to miss another 2 games with his suspension. I'm getting to the point where it's how much will having guys healthy fix this? How much is Errol Golden going to fix? This seems like just a team that's, you got a better game out of Tom McCartan, but it comes as Sam Wicks struggled
and was subbed out.
Yeah, although that sub, they also said he had some hamstring tightness.
Right.
It was a medical precautionary you suck sub. I'm just calling it a medical sub for our classification purposes, but
others could disagree. It wasn't officially medical.
Yeah, but if we're doing this the semi-medium easy hard way.
Semi-medium with a touch of awkward easy hard way.
No, that you're thinking of the sort of hard with a touch of awkward easy difficulty challenging way.
Right. The Swans are now in 13th at 4-7, percentage of 93.2. You look at last year, it required 13 wins to get in. So you're looking at a team that's going to need to win with a minor premiership from last year's schedule, 9 of their last 12 to even sniff finals. I think we can put a line through them.
I don't yet, but I'm not optimistic. I'm at this point, I think without diving deep into strength of schedule stuff, I feel better about probably all of Freo, Melbourne, and Carlton chances to be playing in September than I do about the Swans. And
geez, Carlton.
Yeah, just looking at their schedule, I think so. I mean, I would not be surprised if the current 8 end up being the 8. I think this is the most confident you could be at this point in the season of the current 8 being the 8.
I feel confident about the top 5, most definitely. And 7th.
You're starting to question Hawthorn? Is it a strength of schedule thing?
Partially, plus just what we've seen in terms of their continued struggles without Day. I would still have them making it, but I feel more confident about the Bulldogs making it than I do the Hawks, and I think that's completely fair.
Yeah, the Bulldogs seem like they're always stuck in that very silly, weird Bulldogs. I don't know how to describe it. They're just always in the same spot. They're always the Bull. They're the Bulldogs. That's enough.
It's an ending. That's enough.
And the end to the round was kind of a dud.
Yeah, this didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was the attendance or lack thereof.
If you were one of the 13,486 who saw St Kilda or Euro Yorok 8-13-61 be defeated by the Gold Coast Suns 12-8-80.
The mighty Sun.
Good on you for actually showing up.
I got a kick out of the Go Euro Yorok Go Broke tweet.
That was Brett Sprague from ABC.
Yes, that was good. That was funny.
It was excellent. Honestly, I think the biggest thing to come out of this game was stuff off the field.
A quote that was funny, and then, of course, the media has to take it and run with it and make it into a whole thing.
The Ross Lyon Nepo baby comments.
I thought it was funny.
Oh, I thought it was too. And then Damien Hardwick appropriately last match. Like, hey, worry about your own house, worry about getting people here. And yes, I like that he's saying this because the Suns, they've only had, 2 home games actually at People First Stadium this year with Cyclone Alfred to thank for that. But they had over 16,000 for Adelaide round 4. That's not a team where you think of, right, they're going to travel low to the Gold Coast. And then over 18,000 for the Swans in round 7. In no way should the Saints be multiple thousands below any Gold Coast Suns home crowd.
I mean, on one hand, that is very good that the Suns' attendance has gone up, but I want to know how much did losing to West Coast hurt the Saints' attendance for this game? I'm going to say a good bit, but even if, say they beat West Coast and Jack McRae is playing, I can't imagine it's more than another, 3,000 or 4,000?
Well, what did they have last year for this matchup, which was a total umpire screw job?
It was terrible. I just remember it being terrible.
Round 13 last year, they had 17,992.
Yeah, see, that would have been not great, but not awful.
To go below 15,000 though, yikes. It's the Saints' lowest non-COVID Marvel crowd. The Suns hadn't won any of their last 5 trips to Victoria to play the Saints, and that's going all the way back to 2014 for that. So peak Gary Ablett Jr.
It was small enough that you could really hear the Suns stands, which good for the Suns.
I feel like if you were there, it reminds me of your shenanigans that you would pull in Oakland in low attendance Oakland A's games, which were for completely different reasons. But I remember one time you texted Dad while he and I were watching a game on TV and you were there. And it was just are you watching? He texted back, yeah, we are. And you just yelled,
Hi, Steve!
Oh, yeah. I mean, I yelled clear across the stadium to people as well. It's fun.
I bet you could have done that under the roof at this one. I mean, especially with the sound bouncing off that. Okay, what can we actually say about the game? The Suns were lethal from set shots, 7-2 for set shots in the first half, I believe. Ben Long,
It's been,
out of the gate, really strong again, 3 first half goals.
Ben King,
it's been,
I think he's had 3 or 4 kicks so far this year that were not set shots.
Yeah, Glicko was on this one. It's alarming, but
in today's game, it's not optimal probably to have that one deepest forward the entire time, but the Suns have made it work. Now, maybe we'll start to see this change how teams play against King.
What do you think of not having your top guy on him?
No, just biggest guy or the guy who usually gets that number 1 key assignment.
This was another masterclass out of the middle game for Noah Anderson in particular. Though Matt Rao might have ranked a little higher in fantasy, Anderson had 11 clearances from his 36 and was the clear leader there and forward off of stoppage as well. We talked about him being one of those Brownlow leaderboard guys right now and with a game in hand. I think he's playing some of his best footy right now. He only had 6 score involvements, which feels kind of weird, but that's 6 out of the Suns' 20. Feels weird looking back seeing the Saints actually had one more score in this game because I never felt like the Saints were the better team. I think it's because they were off the pace early. It was a wire-to-wire Suns win. The areas of struggle were somewhat predictable.
I'm guessing the midfield really missed Jack McRae because I don't know if there's a player other than, I think he's maybe even more necessary to their midfield than Bailey Smith is to Geelong.
I think that's fair. Jack Steele did have 33, but only 5 clearances, a goal and an assist. He needs somebody else in there with him, and he didn't have that here. I'm dismayed that Hugo Garcia didn't play because I thought this would have been a great opportunity for him to step up. And while Zach Jones had 7 clearances and 2 assists, I'm not, raving about him in any way. I mean, I know Ross Lyon has given Garcia some tough love, but this feels like the exact game where he would have really been useful. Without looking at the stats, Ethan, who led this game in score involvements?
I'm going to guess it was a Sun.
That's where you're wrong, Krabs.
Really?
I didn't realize this at the time. I think it was because of some late stuff. It was Pepper.
Okay, he did look like he was involved.
I mean, he's been these past few weeks. It's good. It's something. Now I'm just thinking about that meme, but I just don't have huge positives to take away from this game for the Saints. By the way, as we're continuing this whole arc with Ross Lyon's comments, did you see what Sam Collins was saying?
I forget. I saw it not long ago. I just don't remember. It was something else about, like, I haven't cared about Ross since he was my coach, basically, or...
The last opinion of his I took was when he delisted me, so I don't care for his opinion anymore. That's good. That is like the perfect response. Especially for someone who has since become a very steady intercepting defender and was in the All-Australian squad last year.
See, if we could just leave it at this instead of, drag it out and blow it up and make it this whole thing. Like, same thing with the Ballarat comment. It was funny. Bond's response was funny. That's the end of it. And then, there was a sign in the Geelong cheer squad, won't be getting that in Ballarat. And it's like, good. All right, great. No need to drag this out any further.
Well, now let's see if the media types call back to Bailey Smith's Instagram with the comment about the nose beers.
That was awesome. So someone had asked, and said, like, nose beers to celebrate tonight. And he had said, maybe after we win the flag. And then, he posted on a story, like, to my sponsors, I'm just joking. Like, this is great. This is the perfect character.
And we expect the media to fuck it up.
No, I think it probably already would have happened if it was going to. Was Noah Anderson as dominant as the stats suggest? Because I know in Darwin, he was brilliant. Was he good? Was he that good this time too?
I mean, I think it was hard for him to be as good as he was in Darwin, but he was definitely the leader, and I agree with him getting the perfect 10.
All right. There was a stretch where it felt like the Saints were putting on some heat in the third quarter, but couldn't get the goal that would have made things really interesting.
The Suns were able to reply a couple times with key goals of their own, and I never, again, really thought that the Saints were in touch enough to really compel me. And I don't think that was just because I was tired at the end of a round and a long day. I think it's awards time even.
Yeah.
Your round 10 mark of the week winner was friend of the program, Buku Kamas, getting his lead on Zach Reed and hanging on Ben Mackay. Awesome for Buku to get that recognition. Your round 11 nominees, Patrick Cripps got a knee to the back of Toby Bedford, and I bet he'll win because he Cripps votes. Cam Zurhar took one behind Billy Frampton, and Max Magallani had a really nice one-handed intercept snag up against Harley Reid. Don't think any of these are super compelling, but Ethan, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, they were all just kind of I guess I'll go Magallani.
I think so as well. It was more of a wide receiver take, which I like.
Goal of the week, round 10 winner. We really thought it should have been Hugo Ralph Smith, but Bobby Hill got it for his kick out of midair. Your nominees for round 11. We've got Max Holmes receiving Zach Guthrie's handball, running down the left wing, bouncing 3 times and finishing from 47. Tim Taranto picking up a crumb and finishing from the right pocket on his right. And then Tristan Jerry's catching a throw in and immediately kicking a goal on his left. But there was a better ruck goal, that being Kieran Briggs.
There have been a couple of times this year where we didn't like the winners that were chosen and instead kind of did our own. But as we record on the spreadsheet, we took the AFL's winner. Do we override this here and say Kieran Briggs?
I mean, I think the Holmes goal was really good.
I think Taranto's was excellent too.
Yeah, I do too. It's just Briggs should have been in here over Jerry easily. And I mean, Jerry's was fine, but it's just I catch ball, I kick goal. Whereas Briggs,
he soccered through a ball up. Who does that? I'll take Taranto out of the 3 that we've got.
I'm fine with Taranto or Holmes.
Your round 10 behind of the week was probably second place for the year, that being Pete Laddams attempting that bicycle from about 20 meters out. It was always going to the right, but it was a bicycle. The current leader in the clubhouse is, of course, Jeremy Cameron's bicycle poster from Easter Monday. Your round 11 behind of the week goes to perhaps the most electrifying player of the round, that being Kazi Pickett. He had this burst into a contest, got out of it with the ball, but his dribbler hit the post. A lot of post shots are behind of the week winners.
And yeah, this one was really cool.
I mean, it's Kazi. It's kind of implied. Did he hit 2 posts in this game? I think so. I think he hit the right as well at one point.
Yeah, but this one was first off, the way he burst through was super cool. If it had gone through, it would have been a goal of the week nominee for sure.
Congratulations, by the way, to Kazi Pickett for being the first 2-time winner of Behind of the Week. He also had it for round 9.
That Briggs goal, by the way, was early in the 4th. I thought it was earlier in the game, but okay. Ooh, which Mumbai cricket term sounds fun? Bingri, Popatwadi, Hakti Shot, or Kola?
And what was the second one? Popatwadi?
Popatwadi.
I don't know what any of these things are, but now I want to look after we're done here.
Assist of the week. Last week it was Charlie Cameron's backward soccer to Connor McKenna. This week it was a centering ball from Massimo D'Ambrosio to Connor McDonald. Really nice touch, making the he's got the things right here. I will pause this. Arced it over the defender perfectly, right on the money. Nothing like insane about it, but one that should make a Massimo D'Ambrosio highlight reel.
And Massimo is our first 2-time assist of the week nominee because he also had it from opening round.
He would be one that I would guess would be a good candidate to win multiple of those.
I mean, although just great centering kicks so often from him. Your worst on round. We ended up deciding on Mason Redmond for round 10. He had a lot of volume, but was continuously beaten, and his kicks were poor. Nominees for round 11 so far, we've got Nick Watson for being completely shut down by Noah Answorth, being able to do nothing about it. Ollie Lord for vanishing again.
Second week in a row.
Yeah, and I also put in Ryan Merrick for his continued poor kick-ins and turnovers for the Eagles. I think once Ethan sees all those, we'll have a better idea. If we put it up to the fans, it would easily be the Wiz, who's not really the Wiz because he hasn't earned that yet. He could, but right now the wizard that matters is the one whose jumper is undefeated for Wallulup, that being Jeff Farmer.
I also want to mention, while Mason Redmond was our round 10 winner, Brad Hill definitely put up a stinker of a performance too, and I'm never going to believe that he's over the hill and done, because anytime you doubt him, he comes back with a few good games, but Saints could really use that out of him right now. He needs to turn it on in Alice Springs this week. Main character, round 10, it was Jake Melksham. He kicked 4 goals against Harris Andrews and then sprayed him with water after one of them. Round 11, I think it's got to be Ross Lyon for this Nepo baby comment.
Which is great on its own, and then you've got the continued pettiness from the media about it and the clapbacks from Damian Hardwick and now Sam Collins. This is good banter. Holy crap, Lois, it's the bye rounds.
Now, it's out over 5 rounds this year, which for some reason Adam Simpson was like strongly opposed to. He thinks it should be much more condensed. I think it's fine. I like the way it's spread out. Fewer overlaps is always better. I do, by the way, think Adam Simpson has been a really good addition to the booth in the WA games. Really enjoy listening to him. He's a fresh perspective. He's a fun personality, and he knows his shit.
And he's also with one of the better main commentators too, in Adam Papalia, so that never hurts. Progress reports coming soon?
Yeah, I guess so. We'll have to figure out when we can do that, because I've got a bit of a busy week ahead.
Progress reports on their way soon. For now, again, you know where to find us, or I hope you do if you've listened to this whole thing. At Americans Footy, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. I'm at BenjaminHK01. Yes, K.
I am at Castle Media, also with a K. Brian Harambe has returned to sleeping next to me and the laptop I'm recording off. He's on Instagram at cat named Brian. I need to use the bathroom.
I thought you were gonna proceed that with roses or blue, violets or red.
Nah, I was thinking of that, but nah.
I mean, I guess I took the SpongeBob line at the end of a prior episode with the whole licking doorknobs thing.
Yeah.
All right, good time of day.
I need a
Good time of day.
I'm offline.
Good time of day.